Good afternoon, my friends. This is Paul, and today I'm going to be reviewing to you Ori and the Blind Forest Definitive Edition for the Nintendo Switch. Before I continue, let me just state how crazy of an era this is for Nintendo. So they're competing with Microsoft currently, but yet the original version of Ori and the Blind Forest was published by Microsoft. It was exclusive to PC, Steam, and Xbox systems. And now it's on the Switch, with one of the videos in the theater having the Xbox One logo with special thanks to Phil Spencer in the credits. Wow! This is great! Just imagine if Nintendo and Microsoft actually worked together. Whew, this is turning out to be amazing. So, normally I don't like to talk about multi-platform games and go on about how different the Switch version is from the other versions. I like to just review it as its own thing, especially if I haven't played the original version. But when the title has Definitive Edition, I kinda have to go in depth. So before I talk about the game as a whole, let me talk about the changes in case you've already played Ori in some other form and you want to know why you should pick up the Definitive Edition. So for starters, there are 2 new areas to explore, and you don't need to enter some kind of secret password or anything to find them. They're automatically available on the existing world map, which is really cool. In fact, I didn't even know that they were secret areas until I looked up what's different about this version so that I could make a more accurate assumption. It turns out those 2 new areas are the Blackroot Burrows and the Lost Grove. Completing both of them gives you new maneuvers as well as new story content. So one of them is the dash ability, which allows Ori to basically shoot forward at a horizontal angle. Eventually, he or she, I never actually figured out which is which, can learn to do the dash in the air, which can definitely make some of the platforming sections a lot easier. In addition, you can also learn the light burst, which allows Ori to throw a grenade made out of light. Now these aren't just throwaway power-ups to make the game easier. There are actually additional secret areas you can discover that take advantage of your new abilities. So if you already liked the process of trying to get everything, now you can get even more. There are also 4 difficulty settings instead of just 1. There's a new easy mode if you found the original game too hard, then a hard mode if you found the original game too easy, and even if that still makes it too easy, there's a permadeath mode, where you die once and you have to restart the entire game from scratch. There's also an extended theater option so that you can watch the cutscenes as well as some behind-the-scenes videos. Most of them don't have too much narration, but it's still really cool to see how this game went from concept to finished product. And again, it's also super surreal that you can watch the original E3 trailer for this game and see the Xbox One logo on a Switch game. Again, weird. I cannot express enough how crazy that is. Also, you can fast travel by using the spirit wells, which originally were only for saving. And that's about it as far as the major changes. Now let's talk about the actual game. So Ori and the Blind Forest is a side-scrolling platformer where you control a spirit of light in search of trying to restore the forest to its former glory. You're accompanied by another light spirit named Sane. The game doesn't really have that much voice acting, so it's kind of hard to tell. Basically, Sane lets you auto-attack by rapidly pressing the Y button. At first, this may make the combat seem like it's really easy. Oh, just hammer a button and you'll get through the encounters. Well, unfortunately, that only handles attacking the enemies. You still have to move Ori out of the way, jump over obstacles, and avoid the enemy projectiles. So, it may seem like the game's on autopilot, but far from it. There's actually quite a lot that you have to keep track of in combat. And honestly, I feel like the combat, in a sense, sorta slows down the game a little bit. Because normally when you play a platformer game, I expect the combat to consist of jump on the enemy or roll into them. The fact that so many sections of the game require you to be really aggressive and have heavy platforming is not something I'm particularly used to, but at the very least I'm thankful that you don't have to aim the projectiles. As long as Ori's in the general vicinity of the enemy, you don't even have to be facing them, and Sane will just attack for you, which is really nice. You can also upgrade Ori's moveset so that you can get to new areas, which classifies this as sort of a Metroidvania-style platformer, which if you've never heard the term before, it basically means that the world is pretty open world by side-scrolling standards, but you can't get to everything right away. You'll have to learn a new ability in a later area to backtrack to an old area to discover new secrets. For the most part, the game isn't actually that heavy on backtracking if you just want to complete the main story. However, the addition of the fast travel in the Definitive Edition definitely makes it way easier to get from one place to another. Albeit I kind of wish they did more fast travel points, but the ones that do exist serve their purpose, especially if you're a completionist. There's also an ability tree, where if you keep getting new ability cells, then you can learn even more upgrades to your existing moveset, such as allowing you to resave after you've created a save point, decreasing the time it takes to recharge your charge move, etc. These can be done mostly in any order, and it really is nice that the game gives you that level of freedom. Now, one thing that I thought was both a blessing and a curse to Ori that I haven't really seen any other game even attempt to do is the save system. While the game occasionally autosaves, not frequently enough in my humble opinion, the game gives you an option to save when you want, sort of. It's really weird how this is handled. Basically, you have an ability called the Soul Link, and in order to place a save point in the environment, you hold down the A button when you're not standing near enemies and when you're on stable ground, and you have to have one energy cell to do it, so resource management for saving. Who'd have thought they'd go that far? And then, you can only save as long as you have orbs, which are pretty rare. So, if you don't have an orb, you might have to go through entire sections of platforming again if you fail, and sometimes even re-watch unskippable cutscenes, which gets really annoying really quickly. Also, the new difficulty modes didn't seem like they really affected the game all that much. After I noticed that I wasn't playing on the easiest difficulty and I was having a hard time, I switched it over, and I kid you not, I did not notice any difference. This still felt about as hard, if not harder, than Donkey Kong Country Tropical Freeze, which itself was a brutally tough platformer. However, I feel like the stages were designed in much shorter bursts, and that game also wasn't a Metroidvania, so you didn't have to constantly worry about managing your save states, especially in a first playthrough when you don't know what's up ahead and you think, maybe I should save as soon as possible. Oh no, now I have to go through this obstacle course for the 15th time. I just wish there were more instances where the game would autosave, because sometimes it does, and I feel like if the game can save automatically sometimes, why doesn't it just do that all the time? Why can't you just be done with the tough platforming section and get it over with? Now, Ori and the Blind Forest controls really well, so most of the time you won't really have to worry about the game like freezing on you or having an abundance of glitches, because this is admirably performed. The graphics are absolutely beautiful, and the animation really serves its purpose. This has to be one of the most gorgeous games on the Nintendo Switch not published by Nintendo, and considering that this used to be an Xbox One game, this is incredible! I really wish more companies would optimize the Switch hardware this well. So it's definitely up there with The Witcher 3 as far as one of the best optimized ports out there. However, that's not to say the controls are perfect. Maybe it's just me, but there were a couple of moves that felt somewhat counterintuitive to use, like when you learn the ability to shoot from a wall, you have to let go of the ZL button in between jumping from wall to wall, which feels, again, weird, especially coming from Donkey Kong Country Returns, which let you continuously hold down the grab button to climb on vines. In addition, Ori's double jump, well, actually that works just fine. It's when Ori is doing a ground pound that feels weird. Just certain controls don't work the way I wish they would work. Then again, maybe it's because I was playing it through the first time, and on subsequent playthroughs, especially when capturing this footage, I did notice that the controls were ever so slightly more manageable because I was used to them. But I do wish that, say, if I tried to push up and the game made me go down when I was shooting, that would have been nice. Either way, this game is filled with clever mechanics and wonderfully designed levels. While the challenge can be occasionally ridiculously frustrating due to the messed up saving system, this definitive edition features a plethora of improvements if you've already played Ori to definitely make it worth a second playthrough, especially if you're into the very abstract story and want it to be slightly less abstract. The game also has a phenomenal soundtrack. It's fully orchestrated, and oftentimes the music is very somber and melancholy. At first, it doesn't seem like the score is that melodic, like it feels like it mostly just fits to serve as ambiance. But as you get further in, you start to notice that the central motif that you hear on the title screen keeps being used in surprising ways, which allows for the different types of environments to really thrive. Speaking of which, Ori may come across as a traditional platformer if you were to just read the descriptions for the levels online, but when you actually play them, you realize that the theming is far from typical. Sure, you've got fire, ice, and water areas, but the way that Ori handles the puzzles and the controls in those areas makes it feel like something radically different than what you would expect. In other words, this is not a typical platformer by any stretch of the imagination. I wouldn't say it's the best 2D platformer I've ever played, but it's certainly one of the best that I've played that wasn't published by Nintendo. I feel like Moonwalker Studios should really... Well, Moon Studios. Moonwalker Studios is actually a totally different company. I do wish Moon Studios would work on more Nintendo IPs. Like, I'd love to see what these guys could do if, say, they were hired to make another Mario game. And I really hope Nintendo and Microsoft continue this extremely positive, friendly relationship with each other, as we could potentially see an even greater source of IPs on Nintendo systems. So with that, thank you very much for watching. If you have any comments, concerns, criticisms, critiques, etc., please let me know in the comment section. I would love to hear your thoughts. And until the next time, keep the faith, stay epic, God bless, and don't get into console wars. It's better if people just get along. Bye.